Hey everybody, MTG Orzo here with the newest Commander EDH Gauntlet, Freyalise Llanowar's Fury. So this is very different from my Elf Ball list, or it's very different than my Mizzix list rather. This is straight up Elf Ball. I know a lot of people like to play Azuri as their Elf Commander. I've even seen some Dwynens come up, but Freyalise is my favorite Elf Commander. From the Commander 2014 set, she's a Planeswalker that can be your Commander, and she has a lot of neat abilities. And she says draw a card, so I'm going to play her. But this deck is a lot more straightforward than Mizzix's, I would say. This deck has one basic plan, and that's vomit as many elves as possible, make sure they don't die, and then make them huge and steamroll your opponent. So, I wanted to play this deck for a long time. I was trying to find a good place to put it, and I figured after so much just storming and having no creatures, I wanted to play a deck with 42 creatures. So, we're going to go over the deck. We're going to talk about what we do with it, and we're going to run it through some games. So, that being said, let's go on to our lands. So for lands, we have no frills. Also, this is sort of a thematic deck. The only concession I've made for theme is Karn Liberated, because I needed ways to get rid of creatures. So, I have 31 forests, which is fun, 31 of them. And then we got 4 non-day 6. We got Gaia's Cradle, which is just insane. Oftentimes the Gaia's Cradle means you just win the game. Orin Reef the Vastwood makes all our dudes incrementally a little bit bigger. We've got Tranquil Thicket. Which just cycles. And then we've got Wirewood Lodge, which adds a Ninja Star to your mana pool. It's one of the few ways my decks can get a Ninja Star into its mana pool. But you can also pay a green to untap target elf. So this deck has no artifacts, so no Soul Ring and Mana Crypt here. But 1-drops, we have a Dick Load. We've got Arbor Elf, which makes mana. We've got Birchlore Rangers, which makes mana. We've got Concordant Crossroads, which gives all your dudes haste, which is important for when you want to Alpha Strike. It also turns, you can chain Mana Dorks from it as well. You really need to play smart with this card, so you put it out at a time where it actually works. Crop Rotation, sack a land, get a land. It's basically just a sack a land, get a Gaia's Cradle at instant speed. Elvish Mystic, Fyndhorn Elves, and Llanowar Elves make mana. We've got Glimpse of Nature for the big turn. We want to draw a bunch of cards. Draga Tree Speaker, Soul Green. It's basically Soul Ring in this deck. Almost never level it up past level 1, but you can if you've got a bunch of mana and nothing to do with it. Miria's Guile. It basically, you get at the beginning of your upkeep, you get to look at the top 3 cards, then rearrange them. So it's insurance against bad draws, and when the draw is really bad, it wasn't like this doesn't hurt you. You weren't going to get helped anyway. So Quirion Rangers. Return a forest you control to its owner's hand. Untap target Priest of Titania or Elvis Archdruid. And Worldly Tutor searches for any of our dudes. Alright, 2 mana. This is gonna be a quick deck tech. There's not a lot of interactions to go over in an Elf Ball list. So you've got Bloodline Shaman. Choose a creature type, reveal the top card of your library. If it's that creature type, put it into your hand, otherwise put it in your graveyard. With 35 elves, you hit with this pretty regularly. Dywin's Elite. It's a grizzly bear that can give you 1 more guy if you have a 1-drop. Elvish Vanguard, whenever an elf enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on him. This guy gets huge fast. He's got no evasion, but sometimes being You know, just a 14/14. When this attack, target player sacrifices a creature. It deals no combat damage this turn. Can be good enough. Leaf Gilder is the Llanowar elf with 1 power, or 1 more power rather. Just a mana dork. And then we have the mana dork to end all mana dorks, the Priest of Titties. Tap, add a green to your mana pool for each elf on the battlefield, including your opponent's. So that is important to know. It's also annoying when it gets copied, because then your opponent has like 1 billion mana. Sylvan Library, just ways to just force cards into our hands because we really need it. Sylvan Ranger, it's a guy that lets you keep some poor hands because you just get to guarantee a land drop instead of a mana dork, which can be susceptible to removal. Sylvan Scrying, so for 2 mana and sorcery speed, you can get any land without sacrificing a land. So you go grab Gaia's Cradle. I guess if you already have Gaia's Cradle, you get whatever it's called, the elf thing, the one that untaps an elf. Will Wisher gains a life for each elf on the battlefield. Really just takes some games and puts them out of reach. You gain like 10 a turn, and your opponents are going to be annoyed. Wirewood Herald, when it dies, search the library for an elf card, put it onto the battlefield. Usually you want to go and get one of your lords or like an Azuri or something like that, something to really end the game. Eladamri, other elves have Forest Walk and Shroud. Obviously, if they're playing elves, this is not one you want to play out because then they also have Shroud and Forest Walk. But against other green decks, this is a monster beating, and against non-green decks, it gives everyone Shroud. Which is another reason I don't run Azuri, because I've had too many times when I had an Azuri deck where I had Azuri out, Eladamri, and I couldn't regenerate like the elves I wanted to. I can only regenerate Eladamri because he doesn't have Shroud. Nissa's Chosen is just a 2 mana 2/3 that gets fetched by Nissa Planeswalker and doesn't go to your graveyard, so you can always get it back. Alright, 3 mana. We got Beast Within, just a way to deal with problem permanents. We've got Beastmaster Ascension, which is just, you know, you have 7 guys, and they're like, okay, I'll take 7 to, I'll take 7 to 14, and then you drop Beastmaster Ascension, and suddenly they're taking like 40. So it really like turns like easy things into like, oh god, I'm gonna die. Elvish Harbinger. It's the elf from the Harbinger cycle of Lorwyn enters the battlefield. You worldly tutor for an elf, and then it can also add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Which now with the new rules change, I could add black to my mana pool. Like, it doesn't turn into colorless anymore. Fierce Empath searches for our huge dudes, which they are important. Imperious Perfect is a lord that makes other dudes. Very nice. Crossing Grip, just insurance against artifacts and enchantments. Kills top. Reclamation Sage, insurance against artifacts and enchantments on an elf that doesn't kill top. Wood Elves, searches for an untapped forest. Elvish Archdruid, Priest of Titania, that is also a lord. I guess it's slightly worse than Priest of Titania, but it's also a lord, so it makes up for it. Elvish Champion, other elves have +1/+1 and Forest Walk, so sort of like Eladamri, except instead of Shroud you get +1/+1. And Azuri, just a win condition in its own right. You get Azuri and a bunch of mana, and you're just going to win the game. 4 mana, we have Drove of Elves. Hexproof, power and toughness equal to the number of green permanents you control. So this gets enormous and doesn't only count your elves, counts all your green permanents, but has no evasion. It is resilient though, but no evasion. Evasion is an Heedless one, which is Trample, and then power and toughness equal to the number of elves on the battlefield, which is just also very powerful. Elvish Promenade, put a 1/1 elf warrior into play for each elf you control. Getting this on the turn, like right before you Gaia's Cradle is a beating. This card's good, and this card's also very fun with like Orin Reef, the Vastwood. Immaculate Magistrate, put a 1/1 counter on target creature for each elf you control. So you just swing with everything that's not Immaculate Magistrate, and then the one unblocked one becomes huge. So Oracle of Moldiah, just an elf that finds us some more land. Dwynen, Guiltleaf Dane, the new legendary elf from Magic Origins, Reach. Other elves get +1/+1, so it's a lord. And then whenever it attacks, you gain 1 life for each attacking elf. So just another card that puts the aggro matchup out of range for our opponent. Lys Alana Huntmaster. Whenever you cast an elf spell, you may put a 1/1 elf warrior token onto the battlefield. So just your elves become more elves, which trigger your Elvish Vanguard, and it does a bunch of stuff. It's very good common. Natural Order, so this is a real card. So 4 mana, as an additional cost to cast, sacrifice a green creature, search your library for a green creature, and put it onto the battlefield. So you sack an elf token, and you get a Regal Force, or you get a Crater of Behemoth. Like, lots of things you can do with that. Card's busted. Card's insane. It's dumb. It's just ridiculous. It's not a fair card at all. 4 mana is just insane for that. Nissa, the other Planeswalker. I guess we're now running Karn. Karn was actually a late addition to the deck, so that's why we're running 3 Planeswalkers. So Nissa, search your library for a card named Nissa Chosen, put it on the battlefield. As a +1, has another +1, which is you gain 2 life for each elf you control. And then search your library for any number of elf cards, put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. All of her abilities are good at every point of the game, usually. And her -7 is just silly. And we have Yeva, 4 mana 4/4 with Flash, and then gives all our green creatures Flash, so also very cool. 5. Now we got our big stuff coming up. We're gonna run out of elves. I think we have only 1 elf left. So we got Bellowing Tangleworm, which is Intimidate. Other green creatures you control have Intimidate, so it's just a way to give mass evasion, or semi-evasion rather. Elvish Soul Tiller is our final elf, a 5/4 for 5. When it dies, choose a creature type, shuffle all creature cards of that type from your graveyard into your library. So if you have this and a bunch of other elves out and they cast Wrath of God, they all go to the graveyard at the same time. The ability triggers, and you just pick elf and shuffle all your elves into your library from your graveyard. Very powerful ability. Overwhelming Stampede. This card's a monster and a nightmare. Until end of turn, creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So if you can guarantee that if you have a 3-power creature, this is better than Overrun, because it costs 1 less green technically. On this deck it doesn't matter, but it would be if you have a guy with anything greater than 3, it's better than Overrun. Shamanic Revelation is strictly better than Collected Unconscious. It costs 1 less. Draw a card for each creature you control, and if you have a creature with a power 4 or greater, you gain 4 life for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. So it's pretty good. 6 mana Pathbreaker Ibex from Commander 15. Whenever it attacks, Overwhelming Stampede. That's it. It's a 6 mana 3/3. When it attacks, Overwhelming Stampede. So it attacks as a 6/6 trampler, but it is a 3/3. It gives all your other guys at least +3/+3 and trample every time it attacks. CD Unwritten. Reveal the top 8 cards of your library. Put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest into your graveyard. And if you have a creature with power 4 or greater, pick 2 creatures. So this is just a great way to find huge, just dumb monsters. That's all we want to do is play a bunch of elves and then huge dumb monsters and hit our opponent. So we got Soul of Harvest, Trample, 6/6 for 6. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield, draw a card. Just another great way to go off. 7 mana, we have Siege Behemoth. Hexproof, as long as he is attacking. For each creature you control, you may have that creature assign its combat damage as though it weren't blocked. So when this guy attacks, basically gives all of your creatures the Tornado Elemental ability, which is just a great way to force through damage. It's a lot better if you can go Siege Behemoth and Concordant Crossroads to give it haste so they don't see it coming. But oftentimes just a Siege Behemoth sitting on the field with Hexproof just demoralizes them completely. Tooth and Nail. You guys know what Tooth and Nail does. I mean, card's insane. Card's silly and dumb. Regal Force. Enters the battlefield, draw a card for each green creature you control. Speaking of which, we didn't actually go over Llanowar's or Freyalise's abilities. Alright, so just use a 5-mana Planeswalker, 3 loyalty, +2, put a Llanowar Elf into play, -2, destroy target artifact or enchantment, and -6, Regal Force. So, that's what she does. You guys can read. So Regal Force is a great card. You know, I oftentimes Green Sun Zenith for this, especially like off the back of a Priest of Titania or a Gaia's Cradle, and you just draw 8 cards and then just keep going off. It's insane. Then we've got Karn Liberated. The Karn Father just needed a way to get rid of some creatures. Like, I played a game today. I was practicing, and the guy flashed in Elder Scale Worm off of an Elvish Piper when he was gonna take lethal. The card that says like your life total can never go below 7 and stuff like that. But I had no way to remove him, so I went out and got a Karn and shoved it in his deck. Alright, now we've got Crater of Behemoth. This deck doesn't need the Crater Hoof Avenger combo, it just needs Crater Hoof. Woodland, or Woodfall Primus, just vindicates a non-creature permanent, and can do it again. Also, you can get a little neat interaction with Aura and Reef the Vastwood and Woodfall Primus to keep resetting the counter. The Great Aurora, interesting magic card, mythic from Magic Origins. Each player shuffles all cards from his or her hand and all permanents he or she owns into his or her library, then draws that many cards. Each player may put any number of land cards from his or her hand onto the battlefield. Exile the Great Aurora. So, you cast this when you're behind, and then you hope you just get a bunch of mana darks and a Gaia's Cradle in your opening hand. But yeah, this card's fun. I've never cast this card in one though, but I like it. We got a couple X spells. Green Sun Zenith fetches a dude. Hurricane is a way to kill our opponents. It's like a green fireball if we're ahead on life, and it also deals with planeswalkers. And then Genesis Wave just wins the game. So that's the deck. That is the deck. We're gonna take it through some games, and I hope this is more fun to watch. Like, if you didn't enjoy Storm, I'm sorry. Like, it wasn't a very interactive deck. So I hope you guys enjoy this. I hope you guys enjoy this deck.